will be recorded. And with all that said, I'll just turn the meeting over to John from Liverpool. Thank you, John.
Okay. Yeah, I'm John. I'm an addict. And it's good to be here. It's always good to be clean. I'm just trying to see on the screen if I can see the members in Whitport, you know what I mean? And I might be able to see you now, but I'm with you in spirit, and I've just read there on the microphone that you can't like connect. I can't hear you with the audio, but you can hear me, and that's cool. You know what I mean? So first of all, I just want to thank Paul for offering me to share on here. It's really good, and I can now see the members in Whitport, so I'm more connected. I haven't done many Zoom meetings for a long time. I do a lot of physical meetings since we've come away from it, but Zoom is a great tool for us in the fellowship of reaching addicts and that, you know what I mean, across the world, behind the walls, in prisons, in mental health units, in whatever institutions addicts are that can't get to regular meetings. We, as a fellowship, we have a duty to carry this message to them. And, you know, some of us are very passionate about that duty. Some of us feel very humbled about it, you know what I mean? And I do too, you know what I mean? So if you're there in Whitport, you know what I mean, and you can hear me and you're present, and that I want to suggest what was suggested to me when I first come to my meetings is give myself a break. You know what I mean? So I'm going, before I get into my story, I just wanted to, you know, connect to a friend of mine who I lost a couple of weeks ago. I found him hanging. He was detoxing here at my home, and he tried to take his life here. He left here, and 2 days later, I found him in his mother's house, and I found him hanging. So I just wanted to have a little moment of silence for Lee Ellison. Yeah, I'm John. I'm an addict. Yeah. I don't know. You know, I used drugs from the age of 8 till I was 34, and I grew up in a pub, and we had a gambling house attached to it and a brothel, and going to school wasn't something I was really interested in. You know, my dad used to drink, and he become a different person when he used to drink. He was very violent, very destructive, and I was very fearful with my brother, you know what I mean? And it used to take a big toll on me, you know what I mean? So I learned from a very, very early age to escape through fantasy or through going on the streets and getting involved in chaos and things that could distract me from the way I was feeling, you know what I mean? And, you know, when on the streets, like most streets everywhere, no matter where in the world, you know, there was drugs, you know what I mean? And at first it was like solvents or gas or whatever, even fucking petrol, you know what I mean? But whatever it was, but I was really addicted to excitement and fantasy. I was always fantasizing. I had another dad, another family. I didn't really want to be with my own family, you know what I mean, because of the fear and the violence, you know what I mean? A lot of the times I'd just be listening to my dad coming home, and he'd be screaming, shouting, and, you know, and asking me mum where his food was and things like that, and I'd be distracting him, and he'd be smoking cannabis, and, you know, he just really, really off key, you know what I mean? And it was very confusing for me. And my younger brother was very sensitive. He'd hide under the bed. But what I learned how to distract my dad with other things so he wouldn't attack my mum. You know what I mean? And my mum was full of fear, and that fear just went on to me, you know what I mean? And he'd come home, he'd do what he'd do. And I'd take tablets from my grandma's and my aunties, and I'd crush them and put them in his drink, because I learned that these tablets sent him to sleep very quick. And sometimes he'd go to sleep, other times he wasn't. But, you know, it wasn't cool at all, you know what I mean? But running away and being on the streets and taking solvents and fantasizing, you know, I'm black, you know what I mean? My dad was black and my mum was white-haired as Catholic and that, you know what I mean? So we had one side of the family that was black, one side that was white, you know what I mean? So I was always like very confused with my identity as a kid, you know what I mean? Because there was a lot of racism where I grew up in a part of Liverpool. I learned how to be angry. I learned how to defend myself. I learned how to be violent. That kind of got me some respect. And, you know, I was always trying to like be someone I wasn't, even from, you know, I'm talking, this is the age of 8 when I'm taking drugs and fucking around on the streets and robbing cars and getting in trouble with the police and, you know, all that excitement. I was really, really addicted to all that, you know what I mean? And, you know, running away from home, being on the streets with the prostitutes, they were all taking tablets and whatever they were taking, and we'd run on errands and go and buy them. And it was where I grew up in Liverpool. It was a big seaport, you know what I mean? So all African sailors and people from all different parts of the world, and they'd be hustling with the prostitutes. They were all punters. So we learned to survive amongst all that, you know what I mean? And like, you know, the prostitutes, the working girls, they used to like shield us from things. They knew there was a lot of trouble in my house because we had the pub, and next door to it was a brothel and a gambling house. So they knew I didn't want to be at home with all that stuff. So they kind of like sheltered me. And I was like just taking drugs and whatever, and just a lost kid, you know what I mean, looking for love, but you know, mostly in the darkest of places, you know what I mean. And you know, I'll come with that. There's a lot of things that, you know, I witnessed that weren't really cool for me, you know what I mean. But at the age of 10, I was in a lot of trouble, and I got put in children's homes, you know what I mean. I got sentenced by the courts to be taken away from my family and placed in the care of the local authority, and I got placed in a Catholic social services run children's home, and it was run very, very strict, you know what I mean. And like the priests and the nuns who were in there, they weren't fucking cool, you know what I mean. And it was just another thing where I learned not to trust people, you know what I mean. But I found safety in numbers, you know, little gangs of us in the children's home would kind of look out for one another and that, and there was all kinds of abuse going on in there. I'd be running away, stealing cars, burgling houses where people had everything. Because of the area where I come from, we kind of had nothing. I grew up with like a victim mentality with like, you know, they've got everything, like a jealousy, but I didn't even know it was a jealousy. I wanted things what other people had, and I just used to take it. And, you know, and I used to look at people, you know, like, you know, going in, like some of my friends who'd be going to school, they'd be going to school with the dad and that, you know what I mean? And they'd be having normal lives, and my life was just fractured, really broken. And I used to imagine and fantasize about having a family. You know, I wanted all that normality, but it never come, you know what I mean? It was just children's homes, more chaos, similar children to myself, and running away, taking solvents, you know, smoking weed, doing what we do, you know what I mean? Burgling chemists, burgling shops. And it was all about being cool, you know what I mean? It was just like building street credibility because I didn't have no educational credibility. I couldn't really focus in a classroom or anything like that. And mine was about building a reputation on the streets, you know what I mean? And that's something I learned, you know, was deep down, I felt like a nobody. I didn't feel any sense of worth or of identity, and like the streets give me, you know, I felt part of the streets and whatever and that, and you know what I mean. And you know, you build your reputation, you fight, you commit crime, you know, you want to look cool, you want to be one of the boys and things like that. And I was always looking to be part of something, and even when I was part of something, that I always felt inadequate or shamed or that I'm going to be found out. And it was all fear and anxiety and worry. And it's just like constant. My mind was always racing and always feeling I was never enough or I was better than everyone. I'd go from one extreme to the other. But at the age of 12, I found a drug, heroin. And, you know, when I took it, it just took away all this worry, took away all these feelings. And there was loads of drugs I'd taken before then. And this mightn't be everyone's story, but you know, the substance I found that took away that feeling and give me a warmth, and it just made everything quiet and comfortable in the numbness of it all. You know what I mean? And I was 12 years of age, and I think, you know, I've got a daughter now You know, I mean, I couldn't think of nothing worse than having a child on 12 years of age on heroin and, you know, running away from children's home to children's home. And my mum used to try and keep me at home. The police had come. And, you know, and so it was just one drug after another, one institution after another, always on the run, always unsettled, always full of fear, always full of anxiety, but never ever telling anyone about how I felt. Just always putting a stone cold face on it and never saying what was really happening. You know what I mean? Because, you know, I just didn't want to show vulnerability, and I didn't have anyone to show vulnerability to. I was too worried about upsetting me mum with what was happening at the children's homes and, you know, the sexual abuse that was going on in them places. And, you know, there were staff members in there who tried to sexually abuse me. And I ended up stabbing one of them and getting put in like another secure unit and another place, you know what I mean? And it was always like, oh, John's mad, he's always making stories up. And, you know, and I was always getting, I don't know, I was always being portrayed of being someone I really wasn't, you know what I mean? Because there was times that I did say what was happening. You know, I remember saying to the police, I don't want to go there because I'd ran away with a young friend of mine, Lee, and he died in a car crash. And I remember telling the police, you know what I mean, because I got thrown out of the thingy, what's it called? No, the roof, the skylight in the car. I went out of that, you know what I mean? And he was stuck in the car, and the chassis went right through his chest, and it killed him. And I ended up getting caught by the police, taken back to the children's home. And I remember telling the police why we were running away, because of what was happening. You know what I mean? Some of it was, you know, horrific, what I witnessed in children's homes from the age of 10 to 14, 15 years of age. I stayed in children's homes for 5 years. And in them places, I was just dehumanized, brutalized, and violated in every single way you could think of. And taking drugs and shutting down was just normal. There was no voice in me to even say it when things were happening. And from that experience, when my friend died, Lee, I never ever trusted authority. I didn't trust them anyway, but I tried to reach out and say something what was happening. And yeah, my best friend as a child, you know, he died. You know, and it's a big story in my life, a lot of death, you know what I mean? A lot of destruction, a lot of chaos, a lot of tragedy. But, you know, I just went back to the streets, running away from one place to the next. And always trying to fit in. And if there was different drugs getting taken, I'd always take them to be cool, to be liked, to be wanted, you know what I mean? And to be respected and all them things. And that went on and on and on. And, you know, a series of events, you know, caused a lot of harm in my life. And like the drugs were killing me, but my lifestyle was just as destructive, because me need for approval and validation from my peers on the streets and my friends on the streets was huge. You know, so I was very vulnerable to being exploited, and that's what happened. So, you know, my desperation with the drugs that progressed, you know, from heroin to cocaine to crack to freebasing at 17, 18 years of age, and, you know, in and out of institutions and borstals and stuff like that. And at 19 years of age, I found myself in a real lot of trouble. And I ended up with a 19-year prison sentence. You know what I mean? And that was just, you know, it was something I learned to shut away, because whilst I was in prison, I had access to a lot of drugs. I had a solicitor who I was having an affair with, and she was bringing drugs in for me. And in some ways, the drugs kept me alive whilst I was in prison. You know, so I went to prison in 1987. I got released in 2000. But before I got released in 2000, one of the biggest things that happened to me that saved my life was that my brother went to one NA meeting in Liverpool. There was only one meeting. You know what I mean? And all the time I was in jail, there was never any meetings. There was never addicts coming in, sharing recovery, about there being a way out. I just accepted that using drugs was who I was, and it was something I couldn't stop. You know what I mean? I didn't. There was no real attempts at trying to stop. There was a half-hearted attempt once, But on the 5th of September 1997, my younger brother Aidan, who was totally different to me, I was a street addict, you know, in particular, you know, just criminally, just active and using drugs, just one of them street addicts. And my brother was a young gay man who I couldn't accept. I had a lot of shame around him. You know, it was all about me. It was just about my self-obsession and my self-centeredness and fear and worry that people were laughing at me because my brother was gay and things like that. But my brother was everything I couldn't be. He was himself. He'd become an actor in the performing arts. He'd become very successful in life. And he used to come on prison visits and he'd come up with his partner. And I'd be like, get off the fucking visit. Where's the drugs? And that's all I'd be bothered about. And don't you be bringing him up here. And my brother would say to me, he'd go, why can't you just get on with me, Jon Jon? What's up with you? And, you know, he'd be very sensitive and trying to talk to me. And I'd be so hardened and arrogant and, you know, full of masks and street and ego and shame. And I couldn't be myself. There was no sense of self for me to acknowledge him. And yeah, I just rejected me brother, you know what I mean? And it come to a point that when he went to that meeting on the 5th of September 1997 here in Liverpool, he was at that time in my life and in his life, he was bringing my daughter up from when I'd escaped from prison, and her mother was a using addict, and my mother was trying to bring my little daughter up, Sammy, and my brother was helping her, you know, and he was doing all these things for me, and I didn't have any appreciation of them at all. My mind was just fucked with drugs and trauma, I guess, you know what I mean? And I was just so cut off from being human that I was just an empty vessel. And, you know, he'd come on the visit, I'd tell him to go, or I'd try and speak to him on his own. And, you know, I just had loads of shame around it, you know what I mean? Because I was homophobic because of sexual abuse that was attempted on me, and sexual abuse that was attempted on my brother when we were children. These were issues that were massive for me, and I didn't know that I was acting out on these things. But I just compulsively and obsessively do the first thing that comes to my mind, and that creates a lot of damage in my life with my brother. But he went to that meeting on the 5th of September, and he was trying to help my ex-partner detox off drugs so she could be a mother to my daughter, Sammy, in this house, in this room. And she couldn't get clean. And he went to a party with her on the 5th of September. And when they were at a party, they were taking like socially acceptable drugs, which there is no socially acceptable drugs for us as addicts, because a drug is a drug regardless of what drug. But they were drinking, they were taking coke, taking tablets, and they were all using heroin on the sly. My brother come in a room where they were using heroin, and he was drunk, and there was 4 people there, and he was driving them mad for a go of it, and, you know, he's pressuring them and wanting it, and he was going, just give us a go, I've never, you know. But anyway, they give him a go, and he slipped into, he started to choke on his own vomit. And my ex-girlfriend's brother, he started to go over on the overdose, and we were seeing to him, trying to help him. But my other brother was left, and these other 2 people who were there, they done what addicts do. And well, some addicts, I shouldn't say all addicts, and they took advantage of him, and they took all his jewelry off him. They just violated him. They just robbed him while he was dead. And then they took him outside and they put him in an entry, and they left my brother to die at 25 years of age. He went into a coma. Yeah. I was brought from prison to his bedside, and all the feelings of love that I had for him, and the regret that I had for him, and that just come up. It all come up for me, and it was too late to say I'm sorry. It was way too late, you know what I mean? I didn't know he'd been to an NA meeting that night, you know what I mean? But he was in a coma. They were trying to CPR him. They were trying to bring him back, and he passed away. And I got taken back to prison, and just, you know, for the next 3 years, I just done what I'd done for the previous 9 years in prison. I just lived to use and used to live. And I got released from prison in 2000, in July 2000, 23 years ago. And the girl that brought my brother to a meeting, she brought me to a meeting. You know what I mean? And I was curious because of my brother, because when I got released from prison, it really dawned on me that my brother wasn't here. You know what I mean? I was at home, I could see my mum, I could see how broken she was, I could see the look in my mother's eyes. You know what I mean? A lot of us know what that looks like when, you know, your mother's got despair and the very hurt, and, you know, and it was a really, really sad time. And my addiction just spiraled completely out of control. I went to the meeting, I didn't really hear much because my mind was clouded with drugs. I was more interested in the woman than the meeting, you know what I mean? And but I bought a basic text, and I read in the basic text in Who is an Addict. And I got my first identification that I'm not alone. There is other people that are like me. And more importantly, who've suffered like me, who've been to places like me. And most importantly, that have found a way out. And I used to read this basic text, literature written by addicts for addicts. And the words just soothed my soul. They lit something up inside me, and I didn't know what it was because I was so damaged from addiction and using and being in prison. But it took some time for me to realise that it was hope that I was feeling. And I carried on using. The consequences grew faster and thicker and thinner and whatever. And, you know, and I used, you know, up to 2003, you know, the 16th of April. And on the 16th of April, 2003, I got an opportunity to go into a detox similar to Whipport, where I met other addicts in there, and addicts used to come in there once a week and share their stories of their strength, of their hope, and their experiences of what life was like for them before they come to NA. And importantly, what it was like when they were now in NA. And it just lit me up. So that's, you know, that's over 20 years ago. April the 17th, 2003 is the day I got clean. I've been clean since, you know, and so much has happened that I haven't got the time to share about it. But what I will share about it is that I used to love drugs, and I was passionately loved drugs, and my enthusiasm for drugs was just powerful, even though everyone was getting harmed in that. And I've just, my passion has just turned around from being a drug addict to being a recovering addict. You know, I left that place after 8 months. I went into a secondary, you know, supported housing. You know, I started to go to college. I started to stop stealing. I didn't commit crime no more. I got some diplomas and some educational, you know, achievements to help me go into the career which I'm still in now, which is basically helping young men and young women who are lost in society. And I started to help them through youth work, community work, you know, and working in secure settings with children who were damaged and lived similar lives to me. Because I didn't have nothing that I had any qualifications for in life. So everything was new. And I stayed up in Bristol, in another part of the UK, for 18 months. And then my own daughter took an overdose at the age of 11. I come back to Liverpool. There was 3 meetings a week. And many addicts who I seen, we just started helping one another, coming to meetings, you know, because that's the most important thing, is make a meeting. You know what I mean? Get a meeting list, keep clean company, stay with other addicts, help other addicts, and that's what we found. And, you know, in Liverpool now we have 52 meetings a week, you know what I mean? And the fellowship has grown. It's, you know, it's grown on a level that is just totally powerful, you know. And, you know, my sponsor lives in London, so You know, I was just willing to go to any lengths. You know, and when I was in treatment and when I was detoxing, I used to listen to addicts saying what lengths they'd go to and where they'd been. But what happened with me is my pain, my suffering, and the suffering of my family and the loss of my brother, that become a real powerful driving force. And when I took a third step, you know, because I turned my life and my will over to the care of a power greater than me and a God of my understanding. A power greater than me was the fellowship, was my sponsor, was the principles within the steps, was the step work, was the home group, was all them things, because all them things are very loving and caring. And, you know, it inspired me, you know what I mean? And, you know, there's times on this road you have to inspire yourself, because this becomes a lonely road at times, you know. I've lost both sets of parents, but in the 14 and 15 years that I was clean, when I lost both sets of parents, they seen me achieve things beyond my wildest dreams, not just academically. They seen me get married, they seen me get divorced, they seen me go through real tough times in life and not use. They used to come to our local conventions and unity days and seeing other addicts just come alive, you know what I mean? And, you know, so they seen a lot of achievements, but the biggest thing they ever seen me do, which is my greatest achievement, and it always will, is to be clean just for today, to be able to turn up, to have some integrity, to be able to look them in the eye and know I'll do my best. But, you know, there's times when that road was rough with them, you know, making amends and being the man I've become is not the man I used to be. You know what I mean? I'm no longer, you know, the person I was on the streets. However, I live on the streets to help people come from the streets and come away, you know. So I just know this, that in our program, there's only one requirement for membership, is a desire to stop using, and that any addict can lose the desire to use and find a new way of life. Like, my life is beautiful. It's transformed beyond anything I could ever dream possible. You know, going into prisons, doing H&I service, coming into detoxes, even this, it's very humbling for me to be sharing to addicts in Whitport who have possibly felt like me, being in worse places than me, and are so desperate and so broken that maybe this is your time. But I just know this, that when I listened, I learned, and I learned to listen and listen to learn. So with an open mind and open ears and a loving heart and an open heart, I found myself in positions that are so painful and so broken that even then, in my darkest hours, holding my mother's hand and my father's hand in the last dying breaths, I've been able to stay clean and honour them and honour my brother's spirit and make amends and be the man I'm meant to be, and to not have any excuses and to not play the victim no more, because you know, victims find it hard to recover. You know, I'm not a victim. You know, I had a part to play in all the destruction in my life, and when I make mistakes now in ongoing recovery, you know, there's times that I'm humble enough to take responsibility for that and admit I'm wrong. You know, finding my friend 3 weeks ago hanging, just, you know, his life taken from him, that was just like, you know, it doesn't have to be that way, but it can be that way when you don't have a program as an addict. And as an addict in recovery is different than an addict who's just stopped using. You know what I mean? It's very, very different. You know what I mean? You know, so there's endless possibilities when you're clean and in recovery and in the fellowship. You know, life presents these opportunities, even through your darkest times. You know what I mean? A lot of that is happening to me now. But, you know, I just want to wish you all the best of luck. You know what I mean? I hope you make meetings, you know, and I've still got friends now who I was in treatment with and in a rehab with, who we lean on each other still now. And the ones who are still here are the ones who stayed in the fellowship. A lot of them have died, but I just hope you find the love, the courage, the support, the strength to lean on one another and give yourselves a break. Keep coming to meetings, And God bless you all. I hope you find what we find, which is freedom from active addiction. Because, you know, I'm an addict. I'm a recovering addict, and my name's John, and I'm very humbled to be of service today. So I want to thank you for asking me to share. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Beautiful, John.
Thanks,
Thank you,
thanks, John.
Thanks for sharing, John.
Very much, John.
Amazing, John.
Message,
Thanks
man.
so
Thank you
much.
so much for sharing.
Fantastic.
John.
Thank you so much, John.